Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. One of you guys in the comments said today deserves a holy Toledo, and holy Toledo it does. We see Palantir, we talked about it yesterday, was set to pop, and what do we see today? Establishing a new 52-week high. Palantir is doing very well, closing above 130 at the 136. We see some incredible price action. We got some interesting things that Palantir is doing, and they're challenging the strong force of criticism that's coming at them. And I love this transparency, and I'm very interested to see how this is going to unfold. We'll be talking about this in just a few moments here. We have some updates on the trade deals and some updates on Robinhood. A lot of people that are getting more interested into Hood stock, that they have updated their 2025 May metrics, which are looking very well. So if you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. We're doing this. We're getting you guys all the data you need. Pop it up on the screen here. Palantir, look at this nice price breakout. You can see popping up. We talked about this yesterday. If it was able to overcome this 130 kind of resistance zone, and that's exactly what happened. We see it pop up here to about 140 is the official 52-week high, and we see some consolidation here. A little bit of choppiness in terms of the market that we actually saw today, closing slightly in the red. We'll give an update on that in a second, but nonetheless, Palantir is sitting here at this 321 billion market cap at 136. Is the run up to 140, 150? Is that on the horizon? I think absolutely so, as long as we see bullishness that's continuing into the markets, and that's what we have been seeing. The only risk for downside potential that I'm personally seeing right now, a little bit of hesitancy, is that S&P is kind of hanging out around the 6,000 zone in terms of the actual index, and this is a good gauge that I use in terms of just what's the market's momentum. So sitting around the 6,000, this is a resistance zone. So we'll see if we get a little bit of a pullback here, what's going to be happening tomorrow, and especially for the rest of the week. We'll be talking about that more in just a few moments here. In the overnight hours, though, Palantir 135.59, coming down about 80 cents, not doing a ton. Now, what we do have here is that Palantir that I see on X is going to be having a 4-hour session with the New York Times to debunk its actual absurdities, saying that you can transform an attack into value here. And Arnie posts that only when you have nothing to hide. And I love this coming here from the actual global head of commercial at Palantir, so that in the interest of transparency, the New York Times has reached out over an email saying they welcome the opportunity to interview members of Palantir's leadership team. And Ahmed even gave an update on this, saying here, speaking about the leadership, about how privacy and civil liberty protections are embedded in the foundation of actual Palantir's software. So the New York Times, they're welcoming this opportunity here. What you see, if all goes planned, they're going to be talking about the architecture of their software not being used to actually surveillance on Americans. Very curious to see what's going to be happening in terms of what they actually said. Of course, that original article from the New York Times saying Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans. So we see Alex Karp that's came back with some retaliation, and I think rightfully so. And the truth will eventually reveal itself. We will be hopefully getting this 4-hour session. I'm excited to hear what happens. So kind of the big news that we see for Palantir today. And I think that helped increase with some of the buying, pressure that we saw, just showing transparency for the company, saying, hey, we'll show you what we do. If you don't know what we do, don't make these accusations. So I love that. What we see here, S&P 500 closes lower, snapping this 3-day winning streak. We know the S&P's been on a good ride, and the broader market's been on a good ride, just with the anticipation of what's going to be happening with the whole China deal. And we do see a little bit of confirmation there. So could this be some kind of sell the news, or maybe investors are kind of confused with what's happening? What we do see on top of that, also with the CPI data, consumer price index rose 0.1% in May from April. Less than 0.2% estimate from what economists are polling. But we're seeing core CPI right here also increase less than expected. Inflation is cooling. This is another flag, another highlight saying, when are we going to cut the rates? That's the biggest question right now. We see Powell from the Fed is holding out. We see a lot of pressure from the administration. Now I think we're seeing it from institutions, from retail investors, all across the board saying, hey, when are the rates going to be cut? Trump even coming out saying, hey, that they need to drop a full point. So we'll see what happens, I guess, with the next rate decision. But this is just furthering the pressure. We see inflation is lower than anticipating. And this is also showing you that these tariffs are not having a large immediate impact because these companies, they say here, are using, different existing inventory, slowly adjusting prices, awaiting this 90-day tariff pause. But what we heard from the legacy media was that inflation was going to soar after these tariffs were put in place, and we've just not seen that in the data, and you can't argue against that, the factual data. So I like seeing that. Officials, we're talking about the trade deals here, reaching a consensus after 2 days of talk here in London, but saying that they need to seek approval on the framework from the U.S. and Chinese presidents before actually implementing it. Specifically, saying here, as part of the deal framework, he said that magnets and any necessary rare earths will be supplied upfront by China, and the U.S. is going to allow Chinese students to attend U.S. college and universities, adding that we are getting a total of 55% of the tariffs. China is getting 10%. So it looks like, we had a consensus here. We get some talks about that. The deal is done. This is what it is. But then you also have kind of some mayhem in the markets right here. Scotty B coming out saying that trade talks to China are actually going to be a much longer process. So I don't know if they just didn't come together in terms of the communication, but, it sounded like it was done. And then all of a sudden you got Scott coming out here and saying, it's going to be a much longer process, saying that there is no text on the deal, just an agreement after China's presidents approve. So I guess we'll see how this story evolves, but nonetheless, if we got China paying a 55% tariff and we're only giving 10 to them, China's getting 10%. I guess that's beneficial for the U.S. The markets did like that today. And that kind of leads me to my next section here, looking at Robinhood. We've been talking about their stock recently as they've been getting a lot of traction. Robinhood is sitting at 74.88. Pulling back ever so slightly in the after hours, kind of with the general market. One thing that I really like about Robinhood is we are just seeing a decent amount of support here in the mid 70s and even at 71. Now, if we zoom out here, you can see a nice support zone right here at 71. And what we did see was the S&P 500 anticipation for the rebalancing, that announcement, even though nothing happened, there was a ton of trading that was gearing up for the anticipation of Robinhood being included in the S&P 500. We see it popped up here to $77 on a new 52-week high. And then after that, we see this drop right here, but buying the dip, and you can see this ascending support level that is continuing to grow, which is showing that Palantir, or not Palantir, I'm so used to talking about that, Robinhood, investors, they are maybe kind of brushing off the S&P 500 inclusion because, personally, it's not kind of, I think, a matter of if it's going to, but more of a matter of when. So they like the stock, and it looks like they have no problem holding the stock at these levels, and we're continuing to see buying pressure. So what you see here shows you that, what does this mean for the next leg up for Robinhood? And Robinhood is doing fairly well. You can see the metrics here from May 2025. Robinhood now has $255 billion worth of total assets on the platform that are up 89% year over year. We're also seeing all-time highs on that. We're also seeing all-time highs here on their cash sweep at $30.8 billion. Net deposits are doing very well. Funded customers here also up at all-time high. So across the board, the metrics are doing very, very well, which is bringing a lot of bullishness into Robinhood and can show you that this stock, I think, has room to run, even though that they did not get included into the S&P 500. Is that just going to be another catalyst for the future? Going on to the next thing, let's talk about some kind of confusing points that we've saw with the semiconductors, and specifically quantum. Quantum computing has been getting a lot of criticism recently, but their stocks have been doing fairly well with a lot of buying pressure, and I think that's where a lot of the criticism is coming in. Specifically, just looking for nvda on here. nvda kind of just holding sideways, consolidating here at 142. But looking at some of the quantum stocks, these are big stocks that are starting to emerge, like IonQ, you got Rigetti, you got D-Wave, you got qubits, quantum computing. What you see here is an article coming out here talking about how Jensen from NVIDIA says that quantum computing is reaching an inflection point. And why this was kind of confusing to investors is because recently he had said that quantum computing is still like 15, 20, 30 years, whatever, over a decade away. And then now he's saying, hey, they're jumping in this, a lot of pre-market buying pressure after he just said that the industry is reaching an inflection point. So what does he mean by that? In this keynote speech here, what Jensen had said, and why we saw quantum computing, like I said, these are some of the names, Rigetti, D-Wave, and IonQ all rising, is because earlier. Here it is, that 15 to 30 years. That's what I said, before. But saying that they're within reach of being able to apply quantum computing, quantum classical computing, and in areas that can solve some interesting problems in the coming years. Quantum computing, the benefit of it, kind of the phenomena behind it, the theory is, well, I guess not a theory, it's what a qubit can actually do. Most of these binary computers, that we utilize today exist and can only write and read in a 0 or a 1. A quantum computer, a qubit, can be in a multi-dimensional state, which means it can be either a 1 or a 0, making them capable of just basically more powerful computations than ordinary computers. In simplicity, that's what the beneficial of quantum computing is, can make more complex and be able to be actually able to read much more complex code. So that's all what I have for you guys. What do you make of all this? Peace out. Take care. If you made it to the end, hit that like button. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.